to Live and Local. I'm your host, Brian McConnell. With us tonight from the Center of Worker Justice is Mazahir Salih and Misty Rebik. Welcome, both of you.
Welcome.
If you could just both start with telling a little bit about yourselves and what you do at the Center for Worker Justice.
Sure. So I'm the executive director there at the Center for Worker Justice. I've been there for about a year now, but was a part of the original group that really founded the center. So I'm really in charge of helping the everyday functions happen. I'm a resource to our leaders and to our board of directors and to worker members. Help to think about strategy behind campaigns so that we can have concrete wins. Do organizational development, fundraising, all of those things that are entailed in an executive director position. I guess the biggest difference probably compared to some others is that I get to do lots of mentorship and leadership training, and my work is different every single day. So I do all sorts of different things.
Great. And what about you?
As you said, my name is Mazahir Salih. I'm from Sudan, and I'm the vice president of the Center for Worker Justice. And I also am one of the board of directors. Just like we work there to work with the people to make sure our voice is heard.
Sure.
In the community.
How did you both get involved?
Go ahead, Maza. I'll have to think about it.
Yeah. I heard about it, that will put me to tell you exactly how we got found in the beginning. Like as a center, we were found back in 2012, and by a group of people, and is like we united together, and we were maybe from 17, people was from 17 across 17 countries, and 7 languages, and we united together, and we decided to make a difference in the community. And I was one of those people.
I was an organizer from another organization in a different area in Iowa. Came here with the plan to start graduate school, which I did do, but founded a great group of people who were wanting to basically address different issues going on in our community with how would I say it? I think our community focuses a lot on the university students, and so we have a principal concern about people who are everyday workers, people who are, serving us our food in restaurants, or, cleaning the big box stores, or, putting on the factory line, making sure there's things to buy in retail. So basically I was a part of that group that Mazahir was talking about, and together we made a big survey and invited lots of people to take it, and from there really started to work on issues that people identified that were important to them.
So is that how you got it started, just with a survey, seeing who wanted to participate, what the need was? We sat down together and we just start talking about the issues that we face, and we we organized for 1 year on police issues and worker issues, and we decided after that to create an organization, which is the Center for Worker Justice. And in the Center for Worker Justice, we believe the people who impacted with issues, and they supposed to resolve them themselves. They have the chance to resolve them, and that's why we just start educating people about their rights, and we start educating people about their right as citizen in the country, or as right in the workplace, and all this kind of stuff, and we started from there. How many people are involved, from the board of directors to volunteers? It's a relatively new organization from 2012, so how has that kind of grown to?
Sure. Well, actually, we had a really, really great wave of interest in the beginning of our organization. I think in the very beginning, I would say what we had done is we kind of tapped into already organized networks. So there was faith-based groups involved, labor unions, mothers groups, English classes, where people were already getting together, where we went and we told people, hey, we want to do something to give people a voice in this community who generally don't have one. And so what we did is we had about 30 or 40 people involved in sort of launching that first survey. And I'd like to expand, like that survey was not just a piece of paper that you handed someone and said fill out. It was training people like Mazahir to go and talk to their peers and their family members and have essentially like a very intense one-on-one conversation about their experiences in the Iowa City area. So we asked about banking, we asked about housing, we asked about transportation, we asked about jobs, we asked about everything.
So very detailed.
Yeah, very, very detailed. At that point, I would say within probably the first 6 to 8 months of organizing, we had, I don't know, 100 to 150 people who had come to a meeting and who had gotten involved. Here we are in almost September of 2014, and we've got over 1,200 people in our database. So those are people who have come to meetings, volunteer at different capacities, are members, etc. So I like to say in the last 6 months, we've like successfully mobilized almost 1,000 people to take action on behalf of everyday workers.
Wow.
So.
When I was reading a little bit just about the background of what you do, you talk about wage theft. Can you kind of expand on that a little bit and what exactly is wage theft?
Wage theft, of course, is like when someone like work the time that they should do and do their part and do their job in the right way and complete their job, and after that just basically don't get paid.
And that's what it sounds like from just wage theft, but how widespread is it and how often does it happen around here?
A lot. Actually, we recently just were involved in another survey. We don't just do surveys, but it'd been about 2 years since we'd actually done one. And what we wanted to do was really help paint a picture of how rampant wage theft is, not just in the nation, not just in big cities, but in Iowa and here in Iowa City and Coralville. So we collaborated with the group Iowa Policy Project, and we put together this also very detailed survey to use as an organizing tool to really identify workers, educate them, as Mazahir said, one of our big parts of our missions, and then also really start to track how widespread this is. And so we just this summer did about 300 surveys within 3 weeks, door knocking in our most low-income neighborhoods, in different mobile home parks and apartment complexes, with people who didn't even know us sometimes. And we don't have the results of that survey yet, but I can tell you that it's shocking how many people really experience wage theft. And to expand a little bit more on what Mazahir said, so wage theft can look like working and at the end of the week just not getting paid. Believe it or not, that happens a lot. But it takes other forms too. So it can be not getting paid all the hours that you actually worked. So we're talking for non-salaried employees who make an hourly rate, not getting paid overtime, getting salaried when you shouldn't be salaried, like saying you're a dishwasher and they say, oh, we'll just pay you $300 a week to work 12-hour days, 7 days a week. So you're getting $300, but you're getting paid under minimum wage of what you should be getting paid. So wage theft takes a lot of different forms, and that's actually why so many people don't realize it's happening to them, because another big thing that we're seeing here in our community is people aren't getting a pay stub. Like they don't even have access to a pay stub to know what hours they did get paid. Just in the last year alone, we've helped recover almost $6,000 in unpaid wages, and that's just for the people who found us or we found them. And as you mentioned, we're a new organization and we have limited resources, so that tells me that this is happening a lot more often than what I think we even thought. And we'll have those results by the end of the year, and our hope is to be able to use that to mobilize and to activate our legislators to pass stronger protections against wage theft in the state of Iowa.
You mentioned the door knocking. So how are you selecting whose door you're knocking on, and also how's that received when you do go up and knock on the door?
Well, since we know that like happening to the low-income worker or low-income people or the low-wage worker, we decided, from the people that like our members, we decide just to select like some people from the members and ask them to door knock in their neighborhood.
Okay.
And they just, because like they are familiar with the neighborhood and maybe they know like some of them, and that will make it easy. And just like we divided the city, like some people, they went to the east side of the city, the west side of the city, and and the people who do this, like our members. And maybe sometime like one of the leaders or one of the board of director with them.
And how was that received then? Was it mixed results or reception when you knock on somebody's door?
You can find both like that. Sometimes like people really welcome you and you So sometimes they say like they are fine, they don't have any, like people sometimes they don't accept this. But we don't have that really problem, especially on the area that I told you about it. And we went there and we asked them about like if they experience any like wakes up. You cannot imagine. Sometimes they say no, but when they start talking, you're gonna find out like they did have like a wake up.
Yeah, and I also think there's something really amazing about having someone just knock at your door and say, hey, tell me about your work experience. I mean, we don't get asked that very often anyways. And so what we found is if you could get over the barrier of trust, if you could just kind of basically make them talk to you for the first 5 minutes, then people really would open up and tell you all sorts of things. And that's what I think Mazahir has a great point. No one wants to be a victim of anything, first of all. And we don't like to really think that, oh, I'm a victim of wage theft, right? But, and even if people aren't, what we do want to say is, look, like things still probably aren't the way they should be. You're only making $7.50 an hour. Is that enough to support your family? No. So you should join our center because that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to lift up wages. We're trying to lift up conditions. We're trying to change what work looks like for everyday people. And so people would be excited to talk about their experiences at some point because no one's ever asked them. No one's ever said, to the Mexican who works on a factory line 10, 15 hours a day, no one ever says, oh, how did you get treated at work today? And then you find out, oh, you didn't get any bathroom breaks. Oh, you don't get to drink water. Oh, you didn't even know if you had a job or not until you showed up this morning. I mean, we are hearing crazy things happening here in Iowa City. And so you hear that over and over enough, you know that this is not just a one-time sort of circumstance.
And I'm not looking for an exact percentage on this or anything, but do you see more people coming to you, or do you find most of the people who are using your services more from your outreach and then getting a hold of you from that?
I think mostly from our outreach, because I think it takes people who are living those experiences, talking to their peers, to say, hey, it doesn't have to be this way, we can do something about it, to encourage people to come forward. Most of the people who call me, it's because one of our members already talked to them and said, hey, call Misty and see if you can sit down. And then I might get together with Mazahir or Marcelo Hurtado, our president, and we would sit with the worker and listen to what's going on. And then together with the worker, collect facts, put together a strategy, and take action together. So we never would work on a case if the workers didn't want to, or if the workers weren't directly involved. In any meetings or any work that goes into resolving a workplace issue, the workers have to be involved. Because like Mazahir said, we really believe that people are affected by issues should lead the solutions and lead the actions to change those.
How's the community responded? Obviously, growing from a group of 120 to, what did you say, 1,200 or so, obviously you've gotten a lot of interaction and support. How do employers view you?
I don't know.
Is that a tough situation? I guess let me rephrase that. Do sometimes the clients of your center feel that maybe their job may be threatened if they...
Yeah, of course. There's so much fear. I'd like to hear what Mazahir has to say about that too, but there's a lot of fear. People need their jobs. Even if it's $7.25 an hour, they need their jobs. They got their kids to feed, they got their rent to pay, they got to put gas in their car. So a big part of our job is education, is letting people know about their rights, letting them know that we do have the right to organize regardless of immigration status, that you do have the right to be paid regardless of immigration status. If you already did work, you have to be paid. And I think it's all about building trust and building relationships and knowing who in the community already has trust, so that people are willing to talk to you. Like Mazahir is an amazing leader in her community. People trust her and they go to her all the time with problems. And so now that she's connected to this powerful group and this powerful group of community allies, we can actually do something about that. So beyond just resolving the immediate issue, but moving for concrete change, like we've done a lot with law enforcement actually.
But sometimes, the people really afraid to tell you about it. Or even if they tell you, they say just like, I don't want you to do anything because I might lose my job. And that's the only job I got. I don't have another job, and it's hard to find a job in Iowa City. And that's why we're doing like education series, like, to know the right in the workplace. Because if we educate them, after that, we can take the fear out of their heart. And they can still like talk to you more, and we can find out a lot of issues, and we can resolve them.
What other are there other organizations like yours in the state or nationally that you kind of help to get a template for this, or is this all really just from the ground up?
Sure. So actually, we're affiliated with the Interfaith Worker Justice Network, which is based out of Chicago, but it's a national network of worker centers. The worker center movement really has been taken off in the last 20 years, really as a result of seeing, really basically how difficult it is to unionize anymore. Companies go completely out of their way and spend hundreds of thousands of dollars a year in ensuring that their factory or their plant or their workplace is not unionized. And I think with that sort of attack on workers have figured out we've got to do something. And so though we're not a union, we still have the power of uniting with other people. So, we don't necessarily organize every single worker in one workplace. We organize workers across workplace, across language, across religion to stand with each other. So we might be at this workplace today with these two workers, and then those two workers are going to help these workers at this other workplace. And so this the worker justice, the worker center movement has really taken off in the last 20 years. And we did get a lot of support and looked at a lot of different models. There's a few good ones in Texas. There's a good one called Arise in Chicago. There's a great organization in Minneapolis called SETUL. I think it's Centro de Trabajadores en la Lucha. And then we are the only worker center in Iowa, though.
Okay.
So.
Before we move on to something else, what's a website, or how can people get a hold of you if they either need your services or want to help?
Sure. It's www.cwjiowa.org. So cwjiowa.org.
We'll have you plug that again at the end, too.
Okay.
Just so we don't miss this, talk a little bit about the countywide community ID program.
Sure. Do you want me to talk? Or?
Yeah.
Okay. So one of the first things that we found out in that initial outreach to people to see what people wanted to work on, what the issues, what were the things that people were confronting in their community, was law enforcement interactions. The perception of law enforcement was very poor. Most people felt there's a lot of racial profiling happening. Certain neighborhoods are being over-policed. People felt like their interactions changed instantly if they had an accent, or if they were a person of color, often felt they were pulled over only for that reason. So we came up as a group, as members, as everyday people in the community, we came up with 6 problems that we could all relate with and 6 solutions. And we met with the mayor, we met with the police chief, we met with, basically in Iowa City, starting in the beginning phases. One of the last things was a lack of an ID was the problem. And the solution that we created was a community ID. Although people will not believe it, there are so many people who do not have a driver's license or who do not have access to an ID. It's actually quite hard to get an ID.
Well, and I know there's some services like food pantries where you have to prove residency just to use their services.
Exactly.
And without that.
Exactly. And even if you go to a pharmacy and you need a medicine that's behind the pharmacy counter, if you don't have a state-issued ID, you can't get it. Or even when you're paying for your food at the grocery counter, and they want an ID to make sure your debit card is yours. So it's very basic things. And what we know is low-income African Americans, elderly, victims of natural disasters, victims of domestic violence, undocumented immigrants, all, from a wide range of people with a different history, really don't have an ID. So we thought that having a county-wide ID would help increase the perception of interactions with police. First of all, police could rule people out automatically that you're not a suspect. They would be able to write tickets if you were driving without a license rather than taking you to jail. And then beyond that, we started to figure out the economic stability that would come with a community ID. So I don't know if you wanted to add anything to that, but.
And I think this is also what organize our city, because if you know who you are, like who is who and where they live, this is make it easy for the police to find out. Also, like the people with the witness of crime, they are not gonna afraid to call the police and report anything that they see. Or the people who, if they saw a crime happening, also they can call the police because they have ID, they can identify themselves, and they can tell what they happen.
So not everybody can just walk into the DMV and get a non-driver ID or a...
No, you have to have a certain documents to get a DMV. And I guess this is not going to help, the community ID is not going to help only the immigrant, as most of the people know. This will help everybody. Because while we were doing the survey, we was like just going around the city and ask people about their opinions about the community ID. And we find out people, they born in this country and they don't have access to the driver license or maybe, the regular ID from the DMV ID, because either they lost their birth certificate, they don't have one, or they don't have social security number. And maybe they were like, as she said, like a victim of like disaster or anything, they lost their documents. That's why they cannot obtain a DMV ID. And from there, I think the community ID will help everybody.
I would just add one piece of that we do know is that of the 5 communities in the country that have a countywide or a community ID, crime goes down across all categories and crime reporting goes up. So it instantly creates a safer community for all people. So indirectly, people like me, who I have a driver's license and I have an ID, it does really affect me, because maybe if I ever get robbed, the person who saw it is going to call the police.
Sure.
So we really think a community ID will create a more secure and economically stable community.
So besides the cost of maybe implementing a program like that, what's the big hurdle? What's standing in between that happening?
I think convincing people it's not a repetitive service. That's what I've heard a lot, is people go, well, don't we already have an ID? Can't people already get an ID? So I think it's helping people understand how difficult it actually is to get an ID.
Just my question proved that when I said can't.
Yeah,
anybody,
exactly. So I think helping people understand that some of the easiest, simplest things that we take for granted can be a barrier for low-income people, or people who had some sort of circumstance that put them in a place where they don't have their birth certificate anymore. We actually have a campaign video. It's called Identify Me, and we have members and allies and volunteers talking about why they would want a community ID. And there's, you will see all sorts of people there talking about why.
And you also help with housing, correct?
Yes. So we do mostly education. I was like, yes, we do mostly education around housing, mostly aligning ourselves with other groups in town who are working for long-term affordable housing, and then also assisting people in organizing tenants associations. So we think a big problem in this community is landlords take advantage all the time of tenants, mostly because I think the college students have created this precedent of where they don't really maybe fight too hard for things when they get their deposit taken or something like that. But we see that some of the more affordable homes in town are not taken care of. They have pest problems. People never get their deposit back, whatever it is. So we know that landlords, unfortunately, constantly take advantage of those situations. And so one of the things that we think that people can do, though it's there's a longer term solution, which includes more affordable long-term housing. But in short term is to organize the tenants, to hold landlords accountable to taking care of their properties like the law demands that they do. So that's mostly our work right now around housing.
And also we invited like a person from the housing authority, and he just had speech at our center, and he talked about the right, the tenant right, and about what they can do if they have problem, and how they can report it and where they can report it.
So it seems like education and just getting to these people is the biggest challenge. And can you speak to any other challenges that you have? Obviously there's a lot, especially with this being a newer organization, but are there any particular things that you've just found extra challenging?
I think something that traditionally some people would think would be one of the biggest challenges is we work with people from all across the world. So we're working, we really have meetings where we translate everything into 4 languages sometimes. And that can be a challenge, right? That can be a big challenge, but it's a challenge that's so worth making, because what we find out is at the end of the day, no matter where we're from, what language we speak, what color our skin is, we're all workers, and we all deserve to be treated fairly in our work, and we deserve a fair pay, and we deserve a life that we can raise our children with dignity and have opportunity. And so I think one of the most beautiful things about our center, especially when I look at different centers across the country, is that we don't just take the easy route, which is like focusing on one particular group of people. We really, really try to unite people around a common cause. And that's really just like raising voices up, making sure that we're holding our employers accountable, our city officials accountable, and you know, leadership development, really like finding our own voice in our own lives. Mazahir many times has said that now she feels like she can stick up for herself and her kids and anybody else, you know, since she found the center. And we want to be a home of empowerment for people.
Yeah, I really feel like I gained like leadership, you know, you can say, because like in the beginning I don't know even how to talk, and now I'm talking in the front of the TV, which is
and doing a great
amazing,
job.
you know. You know, in the beginning really I can't even talk to somebody about anything, but now I can stand up for my kids because of the leadership that I gained from the center.
That's
you know, as immigrant, I don't know my right. I don't know the culture of this country. I don't know what the policy is. I don't know nothing about it. But now, after I learned a lot through the center, now I can I talk to the school for my kids, stand up for them. I can go anywhere and talk about my right, you know.
And now you're on the Police Citizen Review Board, too.
Yes, and I've been appointed to the Police Citizen Review Board, you know, and which
great.
is, I can just like, we have a voice now in the, like for the local authorities, you know.
So I don't want to skip this because we are kind of starting to run out of time a little bit, but if people are so inclined, how can they get involved? What do you need for volunteers? What's the most beneficial to you?
Well, really right now, we've had overwhelming support in the community of Iowa City. I have to say, people who are, you know, middle class, professors, business folks, all sorts of walks of life of people have really come out to support the center and create a very strong group of allies. I think right now we need to do more base building. We need to really stay true to our mission and make sure that we're empowering more people like Mazahir. We need to make sure that we are finding people and letting them know that this is a safe place to come and organize. So the things that I need help from, volunteers often is if people have language skills. We need French translators and interpreters. We need Arabic interpreters and translators. We need Spanish. And also, if people are willing to help take care of kids during our meetings, we have usually as many children as adults in our meetings. If people have administrative skills and want to come help update our database. So it's like some of those very basic things that we need, though, really, to make this organization work. Even if people want to help give rides to people. A lot of the people we work with don't have a driver's license and come with 3 children, right? And so taking the bus is a huge hassle. And so it's, our volunteers really is what helps make us strong, but it's our leaders and our base that gives us a mission and makes us, really gives us the power that we have now. So I think it's, and money.
Sure.
If you believe in it, just like, this TV station, if you believe in something, if you enjoy something, you really have to give to it. I think that being a responsible community member is so important. And if you have the capacity, I think that giving whatever you can, whatever's significant to you is so important to any effort. So we encourage our own members pay to be members of our organization. So people like Mazahir pay a yearly dues because they want ownership of the organization. Mm-hmm. They vote on our priorities. And so, supporting financially always is helpful.
Wonderful. Well, unfortunately, we are out of time, but I want to thank you both so much for coming and representing the Center for Worker Justice. Thank you for what you do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Brian McConnell, and I've been your host of Live and Local. Join us every Wednesday at 8 p.m. for your latest episode of Live and Local on PATV Channel 18.